Hi, it's Matthew. There's been a lot going on in the world of photography. There's been a lot going on in the world, but let's talk about it. You're listening to the Master Your Lens podcast, episode 165.
Hey, John Lee Dumas here, the founder and host of EO Fire, and welcome to the Master Your Lens podcast, the photography podcast dedicated to sharing inspiring stories, technical tips, and powerful secrets to help you become a better photographer. And now, your host, Matthew Jordan Smith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone who made comments on last week's podcast. Episode 164 is probably the most listened to podcast of all my episodes. I've received so many comments, and thank you all for those of you who have left comments. If you have not heard episode 164 of the Master Your Lens podcast, definitely go back and check it out now. The subject was difficult conversations. Maybe in the last 2 weeks, you've had your own difficult conversations about race in your industry. If you're hearing this podcast, you're probably into photography. And even within our industry, there have been a lot of conversations. And some of my friends feel like they can't say anything. Now, let me be blunt. I have very good friends scattered all over the world. Austria, Bangladesh, Nepal, south of France, all over the US, all over Asia. The great thing about that is I get to hear these different perspectives, and that opens my world and increases my understanding. And not just about photography, but life in general. Years ago, you may remember a politician at one point saying that they had read a lot about certain places, but they'd never been to those places. And by reading about a certain place, they felt like they really understood it. Well, as a person who's traveled to many places around the world, I can tell you that's simply not true. You need to have a real life experience to really understand something. I've traveled a lot, but I've yet to go to Africa, the continent. I've read a lot about it. I have many friends who have been there. But until I go for myself, I can't describe what that's like. And when somebody's talking about Africa, I sit quiet and listen because I can't really give an intelligent comment on what it's like to go to Africa. Hopefully that will change one day soon. But until then, I listen. Some of my friends who are not Black have contacted me this past few weeks and said, Matthew, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to post. I feel like whatever I do, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. And still others say, Matthew, I just want to be quiet and listen. And I get that. Right now in the world, there is a lot of frustration. And let's face it, the last few weeks have been intense. Intense in the world, intense in the photography world. But let's talk about what happens when we really listen. When we are learning photography, you go to a conference, you go to a class, you go to a workshop, and first you listen. You take it in, and then you grow. That's always how it's been when it comes to learning. You have to first listen. Right now, people are shouting. The comments you see online, back and forth, that's not listening. That's only a reaction. And that doesn't lead to anything. What leads to change is when there's growth. And growth first begins by really listening and understanding the problem. Then and only then can you have real solutions and real progress. But it starts first with listening and taking it all in. For many, this may seem like it's new, but it's not. Years ago, back in the 90s, Photo District News did an article on race in photography, and they had several people on the cover. Yours truly was one of those people on the cover. We talked about the issues we're talking about now, but no one listened, and nothing changed. One of my friends asked me recently, did I think it was a mistake doing that article? Did I think I would be blacklisted from the industry and never work again? People have that fear of speaking out, because they feel like if you speak out, they'll shun you and never hire you again. And that, in the past, has been a real problem. But now things are different. Now it's not only people of color or Black people who are speaking out. There's a louder voice, a bigger voice. So for those who may be wondering, should I say anything? And if I do, will there be repercussions? Do not have that fear, because you're not by yourself anymore. I know it may have felt like that at one point, but it's not the 90s. And now the voices are so loud, people are actually listening. Now, to be heard, you must be cognizant of how you sound, because if you are shouting, no one hears you. I mean, they hear you, but nothing gets through. And your words, they basically fall on deaf ears. So there is a way to get your message across. And for those who want to share the message, make sure you do so in the right way. In the past, both King and Malcolm were very smart about how they got the message out. I'm not talking about the sound bites you hear by a fast search, but really going deep and listening to what both were saying. To those who feel what we're going through right now is political, it is not a political issue. It is a human rights issue. And for these types of issues, we need a smart and wise voice. Just because someone is Black doesn't mean they're going to be the right voice to listen to. The smartest person in the room and the wisest person in the room are usually not the same person. If we look back over time, in terms of racism and the fight for equality, there were some great leaders. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, those two come to mind. But there were many more. We need a calm voice today to guide the world toward solutions, not just a Band-Aid, something for the moment. We need real solutions. And solutions come by having real conversations, open conversations. They may not be easy. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee they won't be easy at first. Be careful what you listen to. Be careful what you share. If you do share, make sure you agree with everything that's being said. No matter where you are in the world, no matter what background you are, you have a voice too. So let's talk. I want to invite you all to my open Facebook group. It's called Photography Lighting Ninjas. And this Friday, June 12th, at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to have an open discussion about photography and the state of the world today. I want to invite you right now to come and join me. First, come and join the group. It's totally free. Just come in and let's talk. This is the time to get everything off your chest, how you're feeling. And then let's have a real discussion and talk about solutions at that point. Now again, the date is June 12th, this Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, where Photography Lighting Ninjas, the free Facebook group. We will talk in a calm manner because this discussion is about solving problems, leading hopefully to change, leading also to understanding. I love listening to podcasts. When I'm working out, most of the time, I'm playing a podcast. If I'm going for a walk or taking a jog, I'm playing a podcast. And let's think about that for a second. When you hear a podcast, you are listening. You're taking it all in, and you learn that way. That's fantastic. We need more of that today, to really listen to what's going on before we react to something or react to a statement. When I'm playing a podcast, I can listen, take everything in, sit with it, think about it, and then decide if I agree or if I don't agree with what's being said. But I get to listen first and take it all in and think about it. And that's so important. It's extremely important in how we learn photography. And it is extremely important in how we learn to all live without racism. But before we can get to that point, we've got to have a real conversation about racism and hear from those who experience it firsthand every day, even within the photography community. Yes, it does exist, but it doesn't have to. And let's talk about that. We are in an extraordinary time of change, and that shouldn't be a soundbite. It needs to be reality. The first phase of this, it may be a little rocky. If it leads to us looking back at this time, looking back at 2020 and saying, wow, that was the year where the world became better. That was the year when we really squashed racism. One of my friends called me and said, Matthew, you know I'm not racist. But then this friend said to me, I want to apologize because even though I'm not racist, there have been times when I've seen things happen and I've sat there and said nothing. And he said to me, from now on, I'm going to be anti-racist because to be quiet and sit back and see it kind of makes me complicit. And that's true. At first, that may seem difficult for many, but also being burdened with racism is also not easy. And that's why we're in this place today. So, to everyone who's under the sound of my voice right now, I want to challenge you to be anti-racist. And that's to everybody, Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, no matter what your background. Let's all work together to be anti-racist. When we are all working together, getting past our problems, getting past any struggle, it always leads to all of us achieving more. If you want to talk about that, come and join Photography Lighting Ninjas on Facebook, and let's talk this Friday. All right, everyone. Thank you again for your time. Always dream big. Bye for now.